Okay, it looks like we got the gameplay going. Okay, guys, let's start this sucker up. Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to tonight's offerings for the Xbox Roundtable podcast. This is show number 232, the place for Xbox talk and more on Sunday nights. You know how it is. Naturally, this is your host, Invader, and I am happy to see you all here with us this evening. Tonight, we plan to go over Xbox still seemingly doing well in Japan. Is this because of other factors? Well, we will dive into that. As well, AMD has announced its latest update for FidelityFX, and I believe it's available now for the Xbox Series consoles dev kits. How will this impact the Xbox dev kits? Well, again, we'll touch on that later, as well as some 343 industry news. But first, let me introduce everybody on tonight's panel. Starting off with Tim Dog. Buddy, how you been?
Been good. Been a crazy couple of weeks. We got a lot to talk about. It's going to be a fun show. Happy to be here. I had Father's Day last week, and then the week before that, I had my daughter's Sweet 16. Just been, been pretty crazy, pretty hectic, but good to get back in here. And we'll be discussing Xbox, among other things, and have a good show.
Indeed, buddy, indeed. Moving on down here to Crusader. Hey, it's great to have you back with us this week. How you been, buddy?
I'm good. I'm feeling a lot better. I had some throat issues, but I'm back now. Yeah, I've finally played Cyberpunk, and it was okay. I had a lot of bugs, but I had a good time as well. And I've been playing Little Nightmares today, so I've been having a good time with that.
All right. That's good to hear you got some gaming in there. And how is Cyberpunk these days? I mean, I've had it since the launch, but is it worth popping in again?
I don't know. I thought it was okay. The world was really cool, but I mean, I had one bug where like I was going to fight or to like challenge this NPC to like a boxing match essentially, and he would just slowly slide off the front of his car until he was face down on the ground, and I literally couldn't continue the conversation chain. That happened 3 times. I had to reload my save in order to get him to not do that. So, it's still kind of a buggy mess. Probably the second most buggy game I've ever played. The buggiest being Assassin's Creed Revelations in the Ezio collection.
Oh wow.
That game has a lot of crash issues.
Huh.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's from talking to my friends, it's significantly better from launch. But it probably is still in a state where I would say it shouldn't have released.
All right, yeah, I'll have to check it out for myself, but that's not very encouraging from the sounds of things.
Yeah.
Ooh, oh boy. Good to know, though. Good to know. Definitely, guys in the chat, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Cyberpunk if you've been testing it out lately. Moving on down the list here, Eric Shockley, buddy. How are things on your end?
Pretty good. Just been enjoying this Sonic Origins collection. It's pretty dope. A lot of the games I played a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as a kid when I got my Genesis, so I hadn't played much of the others. So it's definitely cool to get back into those. Enjoying Sonic CD, which a lot of people tend to hate out of those 4, but it does have this cool like time travel mechanic where basically you can basically go to the past. Like whenever you're in a new stage, you can go to the past and then destroy all the generators that make like all the enemies, and then you can go back to the present, and then even towards the you can go to the future, all in this level. And you can see like if you destroyed all that stuff, then the enemies are kind of gone. And then when you get to the final like stage with the boss, you'll have an easy time because you went back and like killed all those enemies in the past. So there's like the cool mechanic is kind of different than the other 3, but enjoying my time with Sonic Origins so far. So.
All right. Yeah, I did see you comment about that. I think it was a couple of days ago. All right, that's interesting. That's interesting. I guess you're not interested in Sonic Frontiers at all coming up.
I haven't been interested in this 3D Sonic since like Adventure 2, but I mean, if they can make a good 3D Sonic, which that's after Sonic Adventure 2, that tends to be not so easy. That whole jump to 3D is not the easiest for at least for Sonic, like it is like I guess Mario. But we'll see. Hopefully it's good. But
agreed. I mean, I'll admit I am kind of interested in the game, but at the same time, you know, there are a few complaints there that I think, you know, some people are right to address. So we'll have to see over time how you know, that one shapes up. But yeah, that's awesome that, you know, you've been having you know, some awesome Sonic playing time. Moving on down here, Centurion Pal, how are you?
What's up, guys? It is Sunday, and it is time to have some fun. Just been doing my ESO thing and dabbling in Devil May Cry.
Nice. How's Devil May Cry playing these days? Which Devil May Cry? The first one or what?
The first one on the HD collection. I'll be truthful. I don't have very much of a background in Devil May Cry, so I'm gonna do it right, and I'm gonna start on the first game, and I'm gonna get my way to the final one slowly over time. I know it's a lot of games, but I'm having fun so far. I'm getting used to the concept of just mashing buttons until the thing dies.
So you've never played 5?
No.
Oh, dude, you're missing out. That's all right. I mean, it's
well,
a great.
I'm glad I held out on for the special edition with the upgraded frame rates and all the other stuff. That's the one I got, so that's where I'm looking forward to. I want to play the game because I'm interested in the story. From what I've heard, from people like Shockley talk about it and other Devil May Cry fans, I'm wanting to know more about the story for sure.
Yeah, was that in your backlog as well?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I
should
thought.
definitely check out 4. 4 is pretty good. Well, that'll also give you like the Nero story.
See, yeah. I know there's like Nero, Dante. There's it's all over the place. The only one I knew was Dante, and that's when Shockley educated me into now that there's different dimensions and multiple characters at this point. And I was like, I really got to check this story out.
Well, hey, it's worth it. I played the original, and the HD collection seems like a really good collection of everything Devil May Cry. I don't think you'll be disappointed, pal, and hey, there's a lot to play there, so I think you'll have a really good time, and I think the guys in the chat would agree with me on that one. Alright, so MLD will be running a little bit late, but don't worry guys, he'll be here. Just give him a few minutes. And everybody, remember to slam that like button and share this out across social media, because we want to get as many wonderful people in here as possible. Okay, guys, with that out of the way, let's kick things into gear now and go into the first topic. And it looks like Xbox is having another successful month of sales in Japan. According to a report from Famitsu, Xbox Series X sold 3,200, well, nearly 3,300 units, while the Series S, a respectable 3,423, outselling the PlayStation 5 again, but it's still relatively close, I would say. Tim, buddy, I'll start off with you here. What do you think about these latest sales numbers from Japan? Are these indicating strength from Xbox, or are these just stock shortages, just kind of crippling PlayStation at this time?
I think it's a little bit of both. If you take away PlayStation and you look at the numbers alone, and considering that there is also stock limitations in Japan, Xbox is doing marketably better than it was last generation, and one of the big reasons for that is the size of Xbox Series S. So I think the way you look at Japan is very positive, because they're showing increased interest, and there's no denying that Sony has a shortage issue not only in Japan but worldwide, and that's due to a couple of things. Some of the things probably not discussed are the reasons why they're in this predicament, because Sony would have to come clean with it, how their yields were, that type of stuff. But one of the things that Xbox did brilliantly this generation is that they had the Series S and the Series X, and both those systems allocate a certain amount of silicon, or let's say material in layman's terms. And for them to have the ability to, focus on the Series S, which is selling and meeting demand, and even still selling out, it gives them an advantage to kind of manipulate their material or silicon, where Sony can't do the same. So this has kind of put Sony in a position that, they're going to have 3 of their AAAs hit this year. God of War, I'm assuming, is going to hit in September or November. Last I heard it was November. So let's say that hits November. They had Horizon GT7 and God of War, and they're probably going to lose share this year because this shortage situation, supply line situation, um, from last I heard, was it's mid 2023, and it could go further than that. This has been a boon for Xbox for the fact that, as we all know, 2022 is going to be probably their first year without a AAA game offering to Xbox gamers, and or exclusive. There's going to be no Forza. There's going to be no Starfield, Redfall, as we all discussed. And the thing is that they're still selling because of Game Pass, and they're hitting demand, and sometimes exceeding demand, where they're still selling out. Even the Series S, you can't always go to. You can get it, but the Series X is still very hard to get. But the Series S you can get, but still these things are selling out. So it's kind of worked itself in the way that Xbox really is benefiting the most, because you're going to have a year where Sony had 3 AAAs and outclassed Xbox really badly in 22 in games, especially AAA exclusives, and they might lose share year long. As long as this supply line thing goes, and this issue that they're having with shortages, um, it's going to benefit Xbox because of what I just detailed. And the thing is that, let's say let's say 2023, it starts to open up, where you can you get an Xbox, PlayStation at will. You go to the store and get it. What's going to happen then is then Xbox is going to be avalanched with games from Redfall, Starfield, Diablo, Activision deal, Forza, and everything is going to hit in place, and they're going to sell like hotcakes due to that. So it's just played into Xbox's hands. A lot of the stuff is luck, but you also have to give Xbox a lot of props that they're on top of their stuff. They're on top of their supply. They've been better at it than Sony has been, especially in the last year. And they're the only console that's selling over what they were selling over year. Everyone else is down. Nintendo's down year over year, and as is Sony, and Xbox is gaining share. And then topple that with, this is going to be a year that they didn't really have much. It's very impressive for them. And I think when they start to, when those games start coming, that's going to, facilitate them even more, where they're going to sell because of those games. So this generation's looking like it's been pure luck, but a lot of it was strategic.
Right.
And Xbox done a great job here, and you have to give Phil and his team, Phil particular, because I know that there was some people that wanted the one SKU and didn't want 2, but the 2 SKU thing worked like a charm. And if we're going to be fair and we're going to be critical of things all over, you got to give them a lot of props for this because, like I said, they're winning in Japan. It says a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you look at their initiatives too. I mean, while it does suck for Sony that obviously, the chip shortages and whatnot, and Xbox does seem to have a chip priority that they paid for, judging from reports months back. They are taking Japan and Asia more seriously now. Obviously, with they've created like studios to outreach for Japanese content and creators and studios. With the Bethesda ZeniMax deal, they acquired Tango Games, so they do have a Japanese studio finally. Their partnership with Sega, I think, really talks a lot about their growing commitment to Japanese content as well. I mean, again, if you go back a few weeks ago to the Kojima exclusive game announcement, they're getting big Japanese creators as well. And while, I mean, again, Sony is kind of stuck at the moment with the shortages. I mean, Xbox is still kind of, Xbox does have some shortages themselves. At the same time, they are doing things and they are being more aggressive and being a little more serious as well. And then you look at their xCloud initiatives as well. I mean, that seems to be doing fairly well in the Asian markets. Moving over to Eric Shockley. Buddy, I mean, I would love to know your thoughts on this. Xbox does seem to be doing well, but at the same time, Sony is kind of stuck here. Like, what do you think of these numbers coming out of Japan right now?
Yeah, I mean, Xbox is just, obviously taking advantage of the situation. Both of them are getting kind of, from what I've seen, destroyed by Nintendo still, because they have the handheld, they have that market unlock and what that market wants. But yeah, I mean, Sony's definitely has the better numbers, but I mean, for what Xbox's past has been, like, these are pretty good, especially compared to like their last console. So it's definitely promising. And I think they definitely have captured at least somewhat of an interest with their your Series S console, with it being the small form factor. Because a lot of times the houses there, they don't have, or a lot of like housing there, they're not going to have a ton of space. So people are looking for like minimalistic next gen consoles. And now that you'll have a lot more JRPGs, that might even entice more people to like, oh, okay, I can actually find maybe a Series S there. They PS5s obviously are still going to be hard to find there or anywhere else. So okay, cool, I can play these Persona 3 and 4 coming to like a console, other than like the PS2 or more of a modern console. I can get the 1S or the Series S and play it there. So I mean, and that wasn't announced for the Switch, so that's kind of a good thing for them, because hey, you can pick up this $300 console and get all these Persona games that are coming. So far, haven't been announced for the Switch, so that kind of at least gives them a kind of entry point there. Something that at least the Switch that's dominating doesn't have. Plus, you have all the other newer JRPGs that aren't going to ever touch the Switch. So I think it's just a good form factor, and you can play some of the new Team Ninja games for cheap, and you can find it on the you can actually find the console. So it's a mix of both, but they were definitely smart versus like, sure, and the digital version of the PS5 looks, it's great for me as a consumer. I got a hold of one, so I got a PS5 for $400 less. But you can see a lot of times you'll look at those numbers, and I think the PS5 digital is even lower than any of the Xboxes. I'm pretty sure, or they're pretty low numbers. It's like a completely small percentage of their actual sales. So people can't even get their hands on that. So.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but they never really intended to wholesale sell that.
Yeah, like they're like it's good for the consumer, but they're not able to produce them any faster, and they're not really even. It doesn't even seem like they're even trying to produce. They're not even. Doesn't even look like they're trying to like even split. Like, hey, half of them will be digital, or even a quarter of them will be digital, and the rest will be physical. It doesn't really look like that, at least on the Japan numbers. Whereas Xbox was smart because they can actually um, produce more of the Series S. That's definitely helping their numbers. So
Yeah, the Series S numbers, I mean, while they are close to the Series X, I mean, they're still above the X. So, that discless console seems to be doing really well in Japan so far, anyways, right? So, no, I mean, no, a lot of people, I remember people mocking the Series S, and it's turning out to be a very strong console for Xbox right now, not just in Japan, but across the world. So, kudos to them.
yeah, people forget how like people were playing. Look, just remember how bad the consoles were coming in the last gen. A lot of casuals didn't care that they were playing. A lot of times, the games on PS4 weren't hitting 1080p either. People didn't really care. So, and they're playing the games all at like 30 frames per second. Whereas Series S is coming in usually at 1080p, sometimes 1440, and you're getting usually at least to get to play at the games at 60 frames. Where you mostly third-party games, you're playing them, even first-party games on the PS4, you're playing them at 30 frames per second. So, I mean, there's definitely some advantages this has that the other consoles didn't have at the beginning of last gen. So it's actually kind of a bump up in performance and what it offers. Plus, you get the SSD. So.
All right. All right. No, that's well said, Eric. Centurion, I would love to know your thoughts on this. I mean, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, like, again, I'm not a sales guy per se, right? I just want to see the consoles do well. However, I mean, these are encouraging numbers, like, on the Xbox front. What are your thoughts on, like, again, these numbers coming out from Japan?
I'm with Tim Dog. It's a little bit of both. It's good news for Xbox that they are starting to develop value for the console over there. They're developing a demand. People actually do want to buy them. I don't, everybody's like, oh, they're just buying it because nothing's available. Well, people don't buy things that they don't see value in. So there's a demand over there because there is a certain consumer over there that sees value in the Xbox ecosystem, especially with the offerings that Xbox is starting to come out with Game Pass, xCloud, game streaming, all the other stuff in between. I just had a guy come to my job the other day, an old friend of mine, and he was excited that him and his son just got an Xbox One X that they bought at GameStop used. And even he knows the potential of even an Xbox One X because of the xCloud infrastructure, that he's not going to be cut off from next generation games because of something that Microsoft has been wanting to implement and prepare for a while. And it's interesting, we end up bringing up the concept of preparing. In acting, in business, whatever you do, there's this phrase: failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And everybody wants to knock the situation. Like when you read these articles, we're not saying Xbox is doing good. We're just saying that PlayStation can't fit the demand that people want them.
Right.
Well, that means PlayStation fucked up. I'm sorry. They failed to prepare themselves. They got comfortable in their little throne and they're like, nothing's going to happen. Microsoft went out and forked out a bill potentially for chip priority. They designed two consoles, one that required a significant less silicon. And also, like the funny part is we brought up the whole $399 thing with the digital edition of the PlayStation. I love how Tim Dodd said that they didn't even have any intent of like mass producing that thing because it's nothing more than a gimmick. We all know that PlayStation loves slapping gimmicks on the side of a box. They loved slapping the word PlayStation exclusive on Red Dead Redemption 2 in the fine print. Oh, it's a little hat. Same here. They just wanted to have the gimmick of when they throw an advertisement on the television, GameStop, Best Buy, wherever that stupid poster is, starting at $399. If you can find it, that's where it's total Sony tactics. I actually see through marketing like that. I'm in charge of a little bit of marketing at my job, and I actually choose not to have tactics like that because it makes the consumer feel a certain way. I actually deal with products where just recently a consumer came in to buy a product from me, and the manufacturer of the product gave him an advertisement that was completely misleading, and he thought he was getting something totally different. And you actually saw the customer feel a certain way about that. And you know what? I don't want to be associated with making people feel a certain way. I think it's great that Microsoft is starting to kind of break down barriers. There's value seen for the Xbox ecosystem. People are starting to want to embrace the things that Xbox is putting out. And I feel that a lot of preparing, time, blood, sweat, and tears from Phil Spencer and everybody else over at Microsoft is starting to finally pay off. And Sony has realized that they got way too complacent and that it's time to basically start kind of trying. I hate to use the word compete because we know PlayStation can actually compete, but it just feels like they're just kind of like on cruise control right now. They just really had this idea that Microsoft could never catch up. And we're starting to see the exact opposite, that Microsoft is coming out swinging and that they are totally prepared for a new future in gaming. That Sony seems like, oh crap, we forgot to prepare for this. Let's hurry up, charge our subscription service. Let's start getting better at game streaming. Now it seems like the roles have reversed. It seems like Sony has a few things to catch up on now.
Well, I mean, to be fair to Sony, like they are still leading in the sales. I mean, in comparison to like Xbox and PlayStation as of right now, but Xbox.
Well, you're never gonna dethrone the king right away, but it's that whole thing. Like when you siege a castle, you don't just walk up and knock the front door off the hinges the first shot. No, you got like, you know, if you're sieging a kingdom, sometimes if you look at historical events, sieges would last months and months and months. We all know that Microsoft has set themselves up right for the slow game. That is exactly why they implemented Game Pass, because they didn't want that wham bam. Oh yeah, we got that instant gratification of selling exclusives and seeing X amount of $1 million in a short period of time. Microsoft wanted that slow drip effect. They wanted to have a slow, steady income of content, money, and resources. And it's basically starting to pay in their favor that Microsoft can slowly chip away at everything that Sony has built. And it's just going to just totally wear on them over time. And I'm very curious on how Sony is going to participate in the long game when it comes to competing with Xbox.
All right, well said. I like your thoughts on that, Centurion. Oh, we got a super chat from Carlos Alvarado for $1.99. Thank you very much, Carlos, for that. Very generous. Xbox Series X is doing great even without first party dropping. Hey, I agree with you. I mean, actually, to be, I'm kind of surprised to see how well they're doing, and that's a good thing. I'm assuming, like again, the having the consoles more widely available is a big factor as well. Game Pass is a pretty wonderful service as well. So.
Just so you know, their numbers for E3 or the game show, they did better this year than they did last year. And a lot of people said last year was the greatest show or one of the best shows ever. And a lot of people were a little down on this year because of the 12 months. But the traction that they've gotten, and I heard this firsthand, that they did really good, exceptionally. It's selling still like crazy. Still being sold out. You know, they're meeting the demand, but they're barely meeting it, and there is a demand. They're outselling the same time. They're selling more than they were the 360, and if you remember now, the 360 really started to sell like crazy. In the same amount of time they're outselling that period. You know, when they talked about this generation 2-to-1 and 3-to-1. There were legitimate people that were saying that. There were industry analysts that were saying that. I think those days are over. I do think Sony will edge out Xbox, but you might get something like, 110 to 90 or something like that. It's not going to be 2-1. It's going to be more or less competitive, and it's from where Xbox was to where they are now. It is a huge turnaround, and you've heard so many people say that Xbox was going to go by the wayside last generation. I remember people saying that they were going to go third party. I remember, people saying that they can't compete with Sony. And now those same people, especially one of them, was saying that they have a monopoly on their hands because of Game Pass and Activision deal. So things have changed drastically. And for them to get out of this year and to gain share is absolutely crazy, because once this hits and Activision gets done and these games hit, you're never going to have a drought like this ever again, because it's just not going to happen. You have 32 studios, now fully making games, and you're more or less going to get 4 games a year or 5 AAAs a year, and that's stuff that they talked about. They meant it. It's just things didn't hit at particular times. People forget we had COVID. There was a lot of things that went on, and they had Horizon for Horizon, a strong last 2021. 2022 is not going to be their year, but 2023, it's just going to be a laughing stock, because they're just going to have so much stuff, and that's not like fantasy. That's going to be a fact. Unless the Activision deal gets knocked down and it goes by the wayside, and even so, they're still going to have a plethora of games. But with that alone, you could talk about getting, next year you might get 9 AAAs, 10 AAAs in Game Pass, day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that is very impressive, Timmy, no doubt. Oh, I just saw that General MLD snuck in here. General, what is up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm doing pretty good here. Just very late, but eager to get into the action here.
Mm-hmm. No doubt, no doubt. Well, first I'll hit up Crusader, and then I'll get your thoughts on this MLD. Crusader, buddy, I know you've been sitting patiently there. What's your thoughts on this information coming out of Famitsu from Japan? These sales are encouraging, but at the same time, do you agree with what Centurion and Tim are suggesting?
Yeah, so they're good numbers. It's growth in Japan. That's the biggest takeaway anyone should take from this, that the Xbox brand is doing better in Japan than the laughingstock of Japan that was last generation, right? They've already outsold the lifetime of the Xbox One in Japan already, which is, wild to think about. So comparing it to the PlayStation numbers, I don't put too much stock into that, because again, I don't think that either are selling at the maximum capacity that either could. If they had 10 times the amount of supply on the market, I'm not even sure that would saturate global supply, and so the numbers are very, very promising for a growing Xbox Japanese market, because they're better numbers than they were seeing during the unsupply constrained Xbox One. That's the key takeaway. I will say that it's definitely a growing market share for Xbox, but I don't know that means necessarily that there is a shrinking market share on the other side, because when you have a $300 device, that one could essentially, it could be an impulse buy. It's much cheaper than just saying a $500 device. You go into the store, and I walked into the store and bought a Switch on a whim because it was $250. And that's going to happen with the Series S. So I don't know that people necessarily buying a Series S are taking share away from PlayStation. That's a very big thing to note, that their share might not be shrinking as Xbox's share is growing, because it's not a mutually exclusive thing. This is because of the cheaper SKU. This is going to be a very weird generation. I mean, we have two really cheap SKUs on the market. We have the Nintendo Switch, which is in a like little field of its own. We have the Series S, which I think is going to ultimately be a little field of its own. And it's going to be interesting to see that. I think everyone's numbers are going to be high, and I agree with Tim. I don't think that Microsoft is necessarily going to overtake PlayStation because there's not a necessary need to be on the Xbox console. You know, like everything is day one on PC. Game Pass is completely on PC. The same, almost the same library at this point. There's some stuff that's not on PC. You know, and then there's the cloud gaming. So like, you don't need an Xbox because you could play it straight on your Samsung TV and eventually more types of TVs. And Jez Corden has talked about the rumor of a streaming handheld today or yesterday. I'm not really sure when he dropped that, but you know, a nice little streaming handheld means that you don't necessarily need the console. So while they're going to be increasing their overall market share revenue wise, I don't know that in the console space they will necessarily overtake, and that's fine. You don't need that. All we should want is more good games to be made and to be playable where any of us want to play them.
Mm-hmm. Agreed, but again, like we've also talked about on the show their initiatives with Samsung and LG to you know have Game Pass apps on their TVs just ready to go. And I think that that's the way to go too, is like with what you said with the handheld gaming. Again, you know, no two market like the markets across the world, they're not the same, and you have to be adaptive to those realities. Again, you look at the Switch, it's a handheld console. I mean, it does pretty well everywhere, especially in Japan. Those things are still flying off the shelves just because of the the size and the portability factor. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. So
Xbox's real victory isn't that they have a Series S versus a Series X. Their real victory is that they are offering a way to play games to literally every kind of consumer, budget, streaming, PC, enthusiast, everyone. You know, there's a way to get into the ecosystem for everyone. Like even like the all access at like Walmart or Target, where like you can pay like what is it, like $25 a month for a console for 2 years, and it comes with Game Pass Ultimate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that.
There's a way to get into Xbox for any gamer on any device.
See, this is one of the strategies I've always wanted to point out. Like whenever I talk about Xbox, I'm not referring to the plastic box that sits on my entertainment center. I'm referring to the ecosystem. And I'm sorry, hands down, Microsoft has one of the most accessible ecosystems in gaming since they have embraced PC and other forms of creating that interaction with the ecosystem, where other companies have tried to create these barriers and these gated community sacred gardens of exclusivity, and you can only play it on this piece of plastic. And we're all starting to see these companies, well, at least PlayStation has realized the error in trying to do that, and they left a lot of money on the table by bringing those barriers up, when Microsoft is continuously hitting around the same amount of revenue when it comes to gaming, but they don't have to have this huge input of putting out all these consoles just to get people into the ecosystem, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes absolute sense, and thank you for bringing that up, Centurion. Well said. Yeah, no, I mean, their ecosystem is very inviting, and again, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be about the ecosystem, not so much the consoles. However, this is very encouraging, though, to say the least, especially, again, in today's times, because of the shortages themselves. MLD, buddy, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously, we're talking about Xbox consoles doing well in Japan. Again, PlayStation, both console makers are dealing with shortages of their own, but PlayStation, again, they've been more affected by like really crippling shortages. What do you think about the Xbox sales numbers coming out of Japan? Are they encouraging, or is it more to do with like, do you agree with what the rest of the panel's saying on that matter?
Oh, I definitely think a little bit of what everyone's been saying is definitely a factor. I think we all know that a large part of it is PlayStation is having supply troubles, but I think it just says a lot in itself that Xbox is outselling PlayStation in Japan on now more than one occasion. Like that's a win in itself. It's like more of a symbolic victory because no one expected this to happen last generation, and especially because the narrative's going on that 2022 Xbox has no games, blah blah blah, and yet this is still happening. So I feel like that in itself, it shows that the winds are changing, even though Xbox, like all the really big hitters are coming in 2023. It still shows that there's still momentum going on. That Xbox in Japan is finding its niche. Like it's more like a cult following right now. But hey, that's it's definitely a step in the right direction. Like it's definitely progress. And then we're just talking about the consoles here. I mean, once you factor in like everyone else said here, like the ecosystem itself, you're gonna have the Samsung TVs, you got the mobile, you got the streaming. The brand is growing everywhere. Like if people are just only looking at Xbox as a console, this is like last generation thinking. Like it is a brand. Yeah, look at it as a brand now. And this is just one aspect of the brand just simply growing on its own steam. Just because it's small, it's priced well, it pairs well with Game Pass. Like that, I maintain that Game Pass is in itself a system seller. And if that wasn't the case, I don't think we would even be seeing these numbers in Japan. I don't think it would outsell PlayStation even with the supply shortages on their part. So, but the fact that we are seeing an increase or like it's finding its own footing, it's very encouraging. It outsold Xbox One lifetime so quickly, and Xbox is making all these Japanese content deals, like Persona, going to Game Pass and this and that. Like it looks like they're making these deals, and it's starting to show. It's starting to pay off, and I think by 2023 it'll be a global momentum thing on an even higher scale than what I think many of us realize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, well said, and I agree with you. The brand is certainly growing. I mean, there's a lot of room to grow there with Xbox, to say the least on that. But there are headroads being made there, no doubt. We have a super chat here again from Carlos Alvarado for $1.99. Again, thank you, buddy. It's always appreciated. He says that a lot of Japanese gamers are posting their support for Xbox. Oh, well, I know. I mean, that's great. I haven't seen it personally, but that's fantastic, honestly. Like, again, I want to see that support for Xbox and the ecosystem, the console, and especially the games. I want to see the games, and I want to see more of the that content for Japan and Korea, too, and all of them, because, again, that's a very, very deep market to go into for sure. And honestly, like, again, I'm excited for things in the next couple of years. Obviously, Xbox, again, they just got Hideo Kojima to work on an exclusive game. They have obviously something going on with that Wo Long game that was announced at the beginning of the month for their games showcase. They got a lot of things going on here, and even if there aren't like exclusive games coming, they're working on a lot of third-party deals with Asian studios, which is, again, it's very encouraging, very encouraging. But yeah, guys, again, if you're tuning in, you like what you're hearing, then please hit that like button. And hey, sub to the channel if you aren't already. Again, it's great to have you all here with us. All of you in the chat, you guys rock. All of you and all the listeners too tuning in. All right, guys, why don't we move on to some other bits of news? And it looks like Xbox developer kits just got better. AMD recently released its FidelityFX Super Resolution 2 upgrade. It allows for sharper images, amongst other things. Crusader, I know that you keep up with these different tech matters. Like, how does this latest AMD iteration or improvement, how does this improve things for Xbox developer kits?
So I'm not 100% sure, based on the wording of their press release, if it is actually in the GDK yet, or if it will be in it like within the month.
Right.
But this is a huge step up from FSR 1.0. For, I would argue, 90% of users, you're not going to notice if FSR is on or not.
All right.
Directly. You'll see the indirect benefits. You'll benefit from the like the frame rate increases, per the the resolution you're at. And this is a much better version of FSR than the original 1.0 because it actually uses more data than just the single frame that you're on. It looks at past frames as well to construct its to construct the next frame properly. I've heard that with some devices it has some slight issues right now. Most likely will be resolved with driver things. This shouldn't be an issue for the Xbox in particular. But this is a big deal. It's not quite as good as NVIDIA's DLSS, but it also doesn't use a dedicated hardware block within the GPU of your device to do it. So you're not going to get as good of a result, but you're going to see a lot of games come out in the future performing higher than games were last month, if that makes sense. And hopefully we'll see some already released games get updated because this is it's only something you need to design around if you are targeting like a dedicated setup. This can be added to games that already exist to kind of allow them to like boost the resolution from what they were already running at.
Okay.
And one of the really cool things with FSR 1.0 was a group of users on Linux were able to kind of make it run system wide so that it was agnostic from any application on the computer. They just had to make calls through DirectX or Vulkan, which is another graphics API, to and it would upscale any game running on your computer. And that's really cool. And in theory, FSR 2.0 is going to make that an even better reality. Now, why do I say this with Linux when, Microsoft's not Linux? Well, we know that Microsoft likes to do a lot of system level features on the console. Like we have auto HDR, we have auto 16x anisotropic filtering.
Okay.
We have the FPS boost, which it's not system wide, but it's like an automatic upgrade for games that didn't need developer intervention. In theory, FSR 2.0 could be used system wide on Xbox consoles if the team wanted to push into that, and barring there being issues, because there could always be artifact issues and things like that they would want to turn it off. But this is a reality. We could see that this could even be done at the system level on Xbox, which would be really cool, especially for a lot of old Xbox One games, to just see them get some kind of upsampling.
Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people. Oh no, go ahead, Timmy.
No, I think that's a very real possibility. I know 2021, I was talking to somebody about this, and they were talking about how they saw it in the Xbox Labs and how super impressive it was. They referred to it as super resolution. So they've been working on this since then, and it's been actively being tested and built in. So what Crusader said, maybe that's what they're looking to do, and it really makes a lot of sense for 4K, a lot of system games like that, and games like for the Series S. If you can implement that, it'd be very good. I'm wondering to see, supposedly, the Deathloop game on PC is really actively pushing FSR 2.0.
All right.
So I'm hoping that if this game comes out for Xbox, it's kind of a test bed for that. But it's definitely very cool stuff. I think Centurion detailed it. Crusader detailed it perfectly, and really detailed it how it's different than NVIDIA, what they're doing. But it's going to be something that I was told that's going to be a big deal in the future. So You know,
Yeah.
it's not
And
something that's like a small thing.
yeah, one thing that should be stated so that no one in our audience is confused: this technology will work on PlayStation. It's just not actively implemented within their development kit. If a company wants to implement it with PlayStation, they just have to manually port the code themselves. It's all open source, and we've seen it before. But with Xbox, the developers legitimately have a version of this code that they can implement into their game that already has all of the appropriate API hooks for the Xbox consoles.
Okay, so Xbox
and
is
PC actually. It also the Xbox GDK also supports PC development. So it's basically anywhere Microsoft is, the game development kit supports development for.
okay. So this relationship that they have, this partnership, AMD and Microsoft and Xbox, it is beneficial for them overall, from the sound of it.
Yep, and nothing would necessarily stop PlayStation from doing the same thing. But Microsoft has a very public relationship with doing it. Every one of AMD's open source tools are in the Xbox GDK. There's a ton of them. FSR is just the newest one, and it's kind of the biggest one. But there's a bunch of these tools that are just natively in the development kit, and this is also important because it runs a bit better. Like the default code solution works a bit better on AMD products currently, just because AMD makes it, right? They've designed it to work specifically with their drivers, their implementation of the APIs and things like that.
Right.
And Xbox is an AMD device. It is also a DirectX 12 device. That both of those things are key features of what AMD has created for their initial support of FSR and the rest of their tools. PlayStation meets half of that. PlayStation is also an AMD device, but PlayStation's APIs for like how they do their graphics calls and like how you hook, like the level that's in between the hardware and the software, for anyone in the audience who doesn't know a ton about this, it's basic. The APIs like DirectX are basically how the game communicates with the hardware. PlayStation has a proprietary API for hardware calls. It's not Vulkan. It's not DirectX or any other like GPU Open was an old one. It is an in-house Sony thing. So it's not. That's why like you don't see PlayStation as a native support in any of the press releases, because it's not. They have a proprietary API that developers will either have to hook into, or Sony will have to release a version of their own. And Sony's very, very private about these things. They don't talk about their APIs. They don't talk about like the exact details of their hardware in the same way. Never have.
Yeah,
Xbox never did until like halfway through the Xbox One generation.
Well, yeah. Now you see them, and now you have things such, as this. I mean, listen. I think that anybody listening to I think you put it out perfectly. Don't think that this is something that you could brag about over. If you want to do the console war thing, because they are fully capable of doing it themselves. I think what Xbox is doing most of all is they're just trying to empower their developers of making their games. So if in fact they want to make a game utilizing FSR and building out 60 frames per second, maybe if it wasn't possible native 4K, they could do it this way. They'll have that option, and it's great stuff. Like this is I prefer the way Xbox is doing it. I like that they are going fully on paper with AMD. And, this stuff, when you talk about the full RDNA and stuff like that, where that gets confusing, I still put up things and people think like it's a joke, but there is, the fact is that the VRS 2.0 is actual hardware implementation that's needed that was put on the silicon for Xbox, something that they waited for and something that put them behind the supply line when it originally came out. That's why you had such a disparity of so many consoles coming out for Sony and for lack of consoles, and also consoles going into the cloud to power xCloud. Why Xbox was so behind in the first year, and now they've kind of, however, got their way with with the chips to facilitate themselves, as we went over the last when we were talking about the last topic. But um, you know, uh, I'm liking how Xbox is going with this, with the FSR, and with the full RDNA 2.0, when they start mentioning VRS. You'll probably hear about VRS with the Forza game. I know Digital Foundry kind of mentioned it, but they're empowering their development suite for creators, and it's going to take time, but this looks like it's going to be a longer generation than we expected. So when all the developers on both sides, but specifically on Xbox, have these tools, what that means for you as a gamer is that you're going to get better games. You're going to get games that run better, and if they're using FSR technology, like I said, from what I heard, somebody saw it firsthand. It is just as impressive as 4K native, if not better. So I'm really excited to see this, and it's great that we're getting news on it. And their Hardaway, I think that's what the team, they've taken a little bit of criticism, rightfully so, with the DVR and stuff like that. But I think the software team is hard at work on this right now. So it's going to be interesting to see when it's really implemented.
And there are a few other, you're talking about the RDNA 2 stuff. There's actually two other really big things that Microsoft has in their specific spec of the AMD Zen 1 APU that they're using. APU being the combined, for anyone in the audience, it's a combined CPU and GPU in one. It's one chip. They have what's called mesh shading.
Right.
It's a redevelopment of the basically how all of the three-dimensional geometry of the world is, the pipeline with how like those are done. It can be done significantly more efficiently. We've only ever seen one game in total anywhere released that actually uses mesh shaders so far. It was a MMO in China called Justice, and they have like 2 billion polygons on the screen at 4K 60. It's incredible.
Holy.
That is a big feature that Xbox has with RDNA 2 that PlayStation does not. They have a different solution that extends the old shader support. We don't know how that's going to work either, because we have no documentation and have seen nothing about how that works. And then the other one is DP4. It's called DP4A integer calculations. Big, scary word. I barely understand it myself. It's a form of machine learning.
Yeah.
It's the big benefit of that is, in theory, have you guys heard of Intel's XESS? It's just like FSR or DLSS in how it upscales games.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In theory, that could run on the Xbox Series X and S as well, because it uses DP4A calculations.
Right, I've heard, and this is me asking the questions behind the scenes when the stuff was going on. I have heard also that required a hardware implementation as well.
Yes, it does. DP4A mesh shaders and VRS, specifically VRS Tier 2. Tier 1 does not. Tier 2 all required hardware implementations. Because it's
so that's where they get
DP4A
the full audio. That's interesting. You know your stuff, Crusader.
Yeah, I mean, I have a degree in computer science. It's what I do for a living.
Okay, that's great to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have a degree in mathematics and computer science, 2 degrees.
And poetry.
And when are you working for Xbox? You should be trying.
The big thing about DP4A is it's hardware accelerated machine learning. Again, the PlayStation and basically any computing device can machine learn. I don't want anyone to think that. I mean, we've seen it on the PlayStation with Miles Morales. They did the machine learning muscle algorithms. The difference between machine learning and hardware accelerated is it's a specialized hardware block that makes it significantly more efficient to run specific calculations on. And that's the same way that VRS Tier 2 works. It is a specific hardware block to make what they do with VRS much more efficient, so that instead of only getting like a 10% gain, you're getting like a 30% gain or a 40% gain. And that's
and those
very,
are the
very
two things
important.
that they waited for. Just so
Yes.
you know, a little inside stuff. Those are the two things that they waited for to be built on the silicon, which was why they were built after Sony and why they were a little bit behind. And you know, you can take my word for it. That was stuff I was actively asking the correct people that would know, and I got my answers. How cryptically I got them as I did, because you know they never would ever give away the you know the enchilada, but they would always, you know, you could, if you could show them an article or something, they could confirm or say yes, or you know. And you know, that's why I had known that full RDNA 2 was coming to Xbox. I actually hit up Anthony Battaglia and John Linneman. I said, listen, I said, you know, they're going to be full RDNA, and they didn't want to touch it, I guess, for obvious reasons, because they couldn't prove it. And I wasn't going to obviously think, but I told them, and you know, you'll be hearing more about that down the line, like especially when these games actually show itself doing it.
Yeah, and a lot of these features are probably going to come from first party or like specialized third party, like people who are developing like exclusive content for Xbox. Because if the feature's not everywhere, it's not going to show up everywhere unless it's easy to implement. Now, VRS we might see everywhere because VRS is not hard to implement. It's from what I understand, it only takes about a week and a few people to implement it into your graphics pipeline. Stuff like the DP4A calculations, unless we're talking specifically about Intel's XeSS upscaling, I don't expect to see a ton of developers from third parties use it on Xbox, just because it's not something that is easy to do one place and not do another place. Whereas VRS essentially you flip it on and you can just make it look better on a different device, right? Like that's a simple answer. Same thing with like mesh shaders. Mesh shaders are not something you can just flip on. They need a lot of fine development.
Right, it has to be built from ground up.
It doesn't have to necessarily be built from ground up, but it's like the time it would take to implement it, you wouldn't be doing if you're only doing it for like a subset of platforms.
You know, that was one of the things that I argued, or, you know, said, you know, when people were talking about the COD deal and Activision, you know, they're going to now be using, you know, PC as the lead platform and Xbox as a lead, versus them using Sony. And that's going to have its own dividends. That's going to pay itself off too for gamers or for Xbox, because now the stuff that we just detailed might not have been used beforehand, but now because it's in house, they might have it at their disposal. You know, they might be pushing out FSR and all this type of stuff, VRS 2.0. You know, and it'll come out on Sony, but it won't have the benefits of VRS 2.0. So that you have to take in consideration that too with the Activision deal, is now all lead platform development is coming from Xbox DirectX 12.
Wow, both Crusader and Tim, you guys are a wealth of information. Damn. Wonderful stuff, guys. Moving over to Eric Shockley. Buddy, what do you think about, again, this update for FidelityFX Super Resolution 2 upgrade? Like, do you agree with what Crusader and Tim are saying, that again these are like surprisingly bigger updates than what we think, and even though it's not like exclusive to Xbox, at the same time it's going to benefit Xbox greatly, especially with the AMD partnership. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's definitely going to have some good enhancements to the hardware, or to our to the software on that side. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to see especially from the stuff that you told us about, like when they were first unveiling like the Xbox Series X, and what that they waited a little bit longer for the hardware. So I'm hopefully that pays off for them, because I know there has been some issues with devs with some of the toolkits, or just like the dev kits that went out later, and some devs didn't get to. He didn't have as much time because it was a newer tool set where it sounded like Sony went with a very similar one that they had before. So that's why you had a lot of devs that could have had a better grasp of the tool set for the PS5 early on. But yeah, it will be definitely cool to see, because I know the power difference isn't that far off from each other, but stuff like any advanced features that that might be in the Series X, since they did hold out a little bit longer on hardware, can maybe make a difference. So seeing stuff like this that they've worked closely with AMD on, it'll be cool to see if there is a bigger difference than what we're seeing right now in the hardware comparisons. So, but yeah, definitely exciting. I definitely don't know as much as like Invader, probably Tim, from what he's gotten from like in the from what he's heard on the inside. So, but yeah, from what they've said from it, sounds like it'd be pretty cool for the to see what comes of it for the performance in visual, what they can do on that side. Probably not as advanced as what you've seen on the PC as far as like the I forget what the tech is called, but the kind of like aliasing, where it basically cuts down a lot of any like jaggies at all, and improves some of the details. So but yeah, definitely sounds pretty exciting. So hopefully we'll see something sooner, rather than later on the from what comes from this.
Agreed. I'm not a huge tech guy by any means, but it does sound pretty cool. And again, it's not going to take too long to implement these things into the dev kits from the sounds of things. So, hey, again, like these upgrades coming, at least it sounds like a big upgrade to me. That's awesome. And it sounds like PlayStation is going to be getting it too, but the way Xbox is getting the implementation sounds better from the sounds of things. Or at least that's how these guys...
Easy. I would say easier.
Mm-hmm.
Easier would be the keyword.
Right. Yeah, and that's how I understood it too. And Crusader, you did a great job of explaining all that, by the way. You're such a wealth of information on that part.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of like game announcements, is the behind the scenes when like devs talk stuff. That's why I love a lot of the Digital Foundry coverage. Like I don't get into the actual like comparisons, but like when they do like the retrospective videos, there was a great one on Ori and a great one on Doom. Those are such interesting lessons.
Mm-hmm. No, and you're right. I do like those behind the scenes things with developers as well. Moving over to General MLD. Buddy, I would love to know your thoughts on this. Obviously, we're not developers. I'm not a tech guy by any means, but it does sound like they're doing some pretty cool things behind the scenes. Like, what are your thoughts on, again, this FidelityFX coming to, this upgrade for it coming to the Xbox dev kits?
Oh yeah, I'm no tech guy by any means, but from what I've been reading, it looks like the toolkit's gonna definitely be a step up. I think it's gonna put some more. It'll make the resolution easier to reach 4K and leave the developers more room to focus on the frame rate. So I see that being one of two things. The Series X is gonna have more maybe 4K 60 frame games, and the Series S, which more importantly can actually have like a decent frame rate to frame ratio. So I think overall the generation is only going to get better and better as long as more developers actually use them. So I hopefully we see these results sooner rather than later. But overall though, yeah, who can complain? We're going to get better frames, better better resolution without sacrificing really one or the other. If developers play these cards right. So yeah, what a time we live in. Like we always thought that it would be like a trade-off to get one thing or the other, but now it looks like in the future, we might have our cake and eat it too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially for all those Series S owners that can actually like make the most out of that little machine. Like really like make the most out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And for that price, damn, it is one heck of a little machine. Again, I'm always tempted to recommend it to people as well for the price point, the availability, and yeah, I just like for what it puts out, it's a pretty nice console. Let's see. Last but certainly not least, I gotta get Centurion's opinion on this, buddy. Do you agree with what the other guys are saying about this update to FidelityFX, the Resolution 2 upgrade? Because I mean, it does sound pretty cool. Again, the dev kits sound like they're gonna be enhanced, but I mean, again, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. What's your take?
Well, for starters, I must confess, sorry, that I am not as hardware tech like savvy when it comes to comparing myself to definitely Crusader and even Tim Dog. I love learning about tech. Whenever somebody like that like them speaks, I listen. And I will not forget when years ago when we were all having that back and forth like everybody does in the community on what was going to be in these newer consoles. I was one of the ones that listened to Tim Dog when he said that they were going to go full-blown RDNA 2, and I did not know what RDNA was even to begin with, so I started going on to AMD's websites, learning about all this stuff, and that's when I noticed a fundamental thing missing, at least from what was being said about PlayStation and what was being said about Xbox, is when you looked at the RDNA 2 explanation on the Xbox side, it was like always referred to as RDNA 2 plus. And when you talked about it on PlayStation, it was always jokingly called RDNA 1.5, even though there was not a 1.5. It was either RDNA 1 or RDNA 2. But it was interesting that they had dropped the plus sign off of the RDNA 2 on the PlayStation side. And I was one of the ones that kind of pointed that out, at least in my mind, when I said, hey, why is the plus sign missing off of the chip over here if this is what they're using? And that's where I read more into it and found out that there was a more even though it's a very different on a hardware level, there's a lot more cloud implementation and all this other stuff that they could do with the chip. And that's when I suggested to somebody, hey, do you think they could potentially use this chip and the software and stuff to potentially play games like off the server? Like I'm not going to say who I mentioned this to in the thing, because I don't want to like put their name out there, but I threw this idea at them like, hey, can they take a next generation game and put it through the xCloud system using the RDNA 2 chip and make it possible for an older console to play these newer games? And when I threw that idea at them, they're like, I don't even know if that's possible. That sounds like a cool idea. And now years later, completely find out that this is actually happening. So, I mean, it's kudos to Microsoft that they actually waited for that chip to be fully complete. I remember when the X-Ray came out from the RDNA chip from the PS5, and the people weren't supposed to see that X-ray of the sock, and they were like, hey, this isn't a true RDNA 2 chip because it's missing this, it's missing that. Like in the X-Ray, it showed the actual hardware solutions missing off of the chip compared to the Xbox side. And now we totally see Microsoft was really, really smart in waiting for that. They're able to do a little bit more with their console on a hardware level, obviously through other software implementations and stuff like that. Other companies can create these same systems, but like Microsoft did, they wanted to make it easier. And if we go back to, we all remember Xbox Power On, that documentary, right?
Oh,
well, yeah. It just recently won a daytime Grammy for being a very well done, put together documentary. And one thing they pointed out in that documentary was the whole concept behind the Xbox was the original Xbox was not only to get Microsoft into gaming, but they were also designing it to be attractive to developers for ease of use when it comes to development. And I feel like Microsoft has always tried to keep that concept alive when it comes to developing these consoles. They always want to develop a console that has a good ease of use when it comes to developing for. And that's why I just get excited when I hear about new tech and things that are going to make it easier for developers to be able to create games for us all to love and enjoy. And it also kind of lowers I guess the barrier of entry for a developer, making it easy, like, because I'm going to be truthful, some of these developers don't have all the money in the world. So if we can make it easier for them to get a game on a platform, we all pay off in the end as the consumer. So to me, this just gets me excited for the future of gaming and like what potentially where we could be in 10 years or what the next generation of consoles could look like and just where it's going. So I'm excited.
All right, good stuff there, Centurion. I really liked your comments there. Again, I'm not a huge tech guy myself, but I do still find it interesting, and the stuff that we're able to do with consoles now is just really mind-blowing. It's funny, I saw your comment in the chat, Yobi, and I agree with you. It's like, we're already hearing comments about, or rumors about, mid-gen refreshes already. And again, companies, they got to work on that stuff behind the scenes. They got to look towards the future. But these, what we're talking about now, these like implementations where again we're getting better resolutions, better this, better that. Like, it's still amazing what these consoles can do. They've only been out a couple of years, and I can't wait to see a lot of the games that really take advantage of these consoles, especially with these latest AMD upgrades coming. And I can't wait to see the first party especially take advantage of it. But yeah, guys, why don't we move on to our last topic of the night? And we're going to talk about 343 Industries. They recently put out a blog on Halo Waypoint talking about the Master Chief Collection, right? I mean, hey, that collection's still going strong, explaining that they're ending their season-based model for a series model coming soon. Now, part of this involves, renaming season points to Spartan points, and those will still be earned by completing various challenges, which, again, that's a good thing. However, it seems like 343 Industries is interested in players being able to purchase these Spartan points. While they're fine with the current system, it's something that they're exploring, and it's kind of raising a few eyebrows amongst the player base. And they stated, and I quote, that it would be an optional additive alternative for players who might find the vast scope of content to be an intimidating amount of playtime and want to get ahead on or skip the grind, or maybe want to go grab a specific item. Now, MLD, while this isn't set in stone, they're just kind of talking about it here. What do you think of them possibly introducing these like kind of microtransactions into the Master Chief Collection?
Well, this is where I would tell 343 to tread very lightly, not make a big thing out of this, because we all know the story about MCC. Like it's sorted past how it took literally several years to get to a really solid state, and is now, in my opinion, like the best compilation collection in all of gaming. Like all the campaigns, shared online multiplayer, like all these new modes, like Flood Firefight that was never in the original games to begin with. I can go on. Like the package is like unbeatable for value, and they know this, and it has its steady population. It has its community, so I think they want to capitalize on it. Okay, fine. And it's good that they're saying that this is going to be an additive thing, not like, it's not going to be front and center. If they want to do it right, don't make a big deal out of this, and do not make it like, on the game's interface. Don't like make it super obvious for people to see. Like, don't just plaster it in their faces like, say, Halo Infinite's marketplace, Like, make it very subtle, make them like have to look to kind of find it kind of thing. Show that it's not really front and center. That's the biggest thing, to not make it a big deal. Because I do see the point, because they are doing a lot of cosmetics now for the multiplayer. And if people really don't want to grind, I mean, hey, like I'm a father with a full-time job. I don't want to spend hours to grind to get this certain cosmetic item I want, and I got the spare money to put down. Okay, that's my choice. but make it easy to grind for everything else. Don't make it harder to grind. Don't make it like, don't give the unconscious decision, like, the unconscious choice to put down money for, make it like, pay to get the stuff you want. Make it as easy as it is to unlock things right now. Keep it exactly as it is if there's no complaints. Just add this on the side, low key, and I think they can get away with it. So long as they are transparent and they make it known that, hey, it's for a certain kind of gamer that just doesn't have the time as the rest. But rest assured, everything you can unlock is, you can do it by not paying a single cent of your own money. It's all there if you're there to earn for it, and it's not a long grind. If they can make that very clear, I think they could pull it off. In that regard, it's not the worst thing that could happen. Again, so long as it's an option and not front and center. So that's my stance. It can work.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, and I do think that they need to tread very carefully here as well, because they've got a lot of kudos and a lot of respect for sticking with the Master Chief Collection, right? I mean, it took them years to get to where they are now, and introducing a lot of like really good fan feedback. Like you said, like the Flood Firefight, awesome addition. Like that's what everybody wanted to begin with. But I do have to say that, again, like with other people that was skipping the grind, how they were coining things really the best way to word things, because yes, I mean, you are skipping ahead, but at the same time, a lot of players are working towards, they want to, work towards it. They don't want to have to pay for anything. It wants just, again, more in-game earnings, so to speak, right? Again, it's an interesting situation being brought up here, as 343 are working on Halo Infinite still as well. Centurion, I'll go to you on this one as well. What do you think about 343's comments here, possibly like adding these Spartan Point microtransactions, being able to purchase them? Got any thoughts here? Again, I'm not huge on microtransactions myself, but maybe you have a different perspective.
My God, I like how General just said it. Tread lightly. With microtransactions, look, I'm not one of these people, forgive me, that are gonna say that microtransactions have no place in the gaming industry. It is what it is. If they're implemented right and they're cosmetic, and we're not talking like egregious crap like what's going on with Diablo Immortal or pay to win strategies outright. I feel like they do have a place. And I only say that because, I play Elder Scrolls Online, and yeah, there's certain things in that game that are only obtainable by rolling over the loot boxes over and over and over again and spending an obscene amount of money, or just downright getting lucky and by some chance getting rewarded this thing for free in a loot box, pretty much. And well, it wouldn't be for free, but a lot easily given to you for free, because you have to buy the loot box, take the objects, convert them into crown gems, and then like when you do this, sometimes you'll walk away with like maybe 15 crown gems, 20 crown gems, and the object you want is 400 crown gems, and the average box it costs about, I want to say, $3-4, and if you buy so many of them at a time, it can get pretty bad if you're addicted to the concept of rolling them over. And that's where I don't want to see stuff like that fully implemented, because I would love to be able to just outright buy some of these things, because I work too damn much. I'll be truthful. I can't grind 20, 30 hours, 40 hours a week on just one specific game. I have a backlog a mile long, and I have friends that I enjoy to play other games with, and I just don't have the ability to invest that much time into a game. It would be interesting to have a path, at least for somebody like me, but also at the same time, I don't want it to turn into microtransaction hell. So that's why I'm behind General MLD on the whole situation with tread lightly, especially with the fact that, sometimes when you try to make too much change too quickly, it can almost backfire on you. And we all know that right now they're trying to transition into Halo as a games as a service style model. And we see that with Halo Infinite, and now they might be turning their direction towards the Master Chief Collection. And I would have to also again agree with General MLD. That is probably one of the best put together collections of games that I've seen. And I don't want to see that, like, what has taken years and years and years to get working and finally standing on its own 2 feet. I don't want to see a developer walk over and shoot it in the foot with microtransactions.
Mm-hmm. Again, and that's another fair comment, honestly. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody listening in, can relate to you, Centurion. Hardworking, puts a lot of hours into their job and just wants to go home, rack a few hours into the game that they love. I mean, obviously, you mentioned Elder Scrolls Online, and it's easier to, I guess, spend a few bucks in order to get what you really want, right? Whether that be a cosmetic and so on. And I can certainly sympathize with that, yeah.
To me, the concept of like a loot box, yeah, it is gambling, but I don't go out and go to my local gas station and get scratcher tickets and Powerball tickets. I get my jollies off by going on Elder Scrolls Online and buying a loot box and just having just a little bit of like kind of innocent fun.
And also you like to rob banks as well. Don't forget about that.
Well, yeah, me and Fanboy, man. Totally.
Oh, yes, Fanboy. Fanboy certainly needs to return. I want to see more Fanboy, by the way. So.
Oh, no, he is. I'll be honest right now, if I can. With everything that's been going on the YouTube platform, he's going to start diversifying and appearing everywhere.
All right, well, we can't wait. I can't wait to see more Fanboy out there. Yeah, Eric, buddy, I would love to know your thoughts on this. I mean, obviously, 343 have been working hard. They have been over the years with the Master Chief Collection. They have been also been working on Halo Infinite, putting out content for that, as well as adjusting the way that they do the store. I mean, there's been different commentary on the store with like the amount of credits, like how much things cost. Sometimes things have gone up, sometimes things have gone slowly, incrementally higher. There's been some complaints about that. But what are your thoughts with this whole, like, again, the Master Chief Collection, like the microtransactions talk going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty okay with it. I mean, pretty much any online multiplayer game is going to have microtransactions, whether it's Destiny or pretty much anything you can think of. So especially for this one that's just in Game Pass at this point, it's almost a decade old. For them to, and some of their player base is obviously going to be taken up from the current Halo Infinite player base. So to keep some funding, keeping some of those servers up, obviously, and just and it could be a way of just keeping more content. Maybe they can make newer things for it, like some of the cosmetics that they've mentioned, just stuff to kind of like maybe for you to chase or and I think they've shown off some of the pictures of just like new stuff that they're gonna throw in there that obviously wasn't in these games to begin with. So they are putting in effort and content. So I'm pretty okay with the transactions. So I would say I'd be more having an issue, and I guess not so much an issue with the Halo Infinite transaction store, like microtransactions, since it is free to play. But like those are more egregious. So maybe if those were, because this isn't free to play, so if they're priced at some of the costs that some of the free to play store is, then they might want to just tone it down and not go crazy with it. But so make it not something outrageous, make it something like somewhat generous, like to what you're kind of seeing in Infinite, because that's the one main complaint there is just how much stuff how much it costs to actually purchase stuff in the store on Halo Infinite. So I would say just be careful there, because you have a lot of goodwill on Master Chief Collection. So even the people that are upset with Halo Infinite, a lot of them are going back and playing your other games. So don't piss off both and lose both. So yeah, they just need to kind of, I think someone else had mentioned it, tread lightly here. So, but kind of take some of the feedback you got from the store from the Halo Infinite, and then just don't do that on this one, since obviously the game's super cheap at this point to play. It's it's in Game Pass. but it's technically not a free-to-play game. So
No, well said there, Eric, honestly. And they do have to be very careful with how they approach this. I agree 110% with that. Tim, I would love to know your thoughts on this. I mean, again, the Master Chief Collection it's been a transformation, to say the least, right? And it's taken a while, but again, it's one heck of a collection, probably the best gaming collection out there in my opinion. But then again, I am a little biased towards Halo, to be honest. But what do you think about what 343 are saying here? You can tell that they're trying to be careful with how they're wording things with regards to they didn't say microtransactions specifically with the Master Chief Collection, but they are talking about, again, having these points, you're being able to buy them and so on, and skipping the grind, so to speak. Like, what's your thoughts on all this?
I had to just jump out of there for a second because it wasn't recognizing me. But my point, listen, at this point, 343, they're beginning to annoy me, and disappoint me. I was disappointed with the whole incident that happened with the racial thing with Bonapo. I detailed it a little last thing. I don't really want to go into it. But they screwed that up. Frank O'Connor got screwed up at Reset Era and got banned because he's stupid for being on the thing anyway. And then they're starting with this stuff. Listen, I don't personally have a problem with microtransactions. I think that the people go way too crazy and they go over their heads with this stuff. Like, they get so upset, especially when it's cosmetic. But I just don't think that they're in the position right now with what's going on with their studio to even be attempting this. So my take is that they're in serious they're serious. At this point, I would reevaluate just the whole entire studio. The things that are happening are not making me happy. They've always seemed to have this kind of holier than thou attitude, in my opinion. And I've been very fair with the studio. I think that they did a great job getting the game out and getting 87 Metacritic, fixing it. I think Joe Staten was a big help. They did a lot of great things, but they've obviously kind of hurt themselves with post content, and a lot of that might not have been their fault because they used a lot of contractors and they weren't ready. But they made all these promises, and they're way behind, and they're just in a position where I just feel like negative publicity is the last thing that they need, and the microtransactions can wait. Personally, I don't have a problem with them, to be honest. I don't ever buy DLC. I don't care if another person has a bird on their arm or they have some tattoo that's exclusive. That stuff to me gets people way too crazy, and they go overboard and they act like it's the biggest injustice in life going on, when it's merely nothing, especially when it's cosmetic. Yeah, there are times when it's wrong, but for the most part, I don't have a personal problem with it, but a lot of people do. And if you're reading the wall and if you're reading the room and you're looking at where you are, you shouldn't be even mentioning this stuff. The stuff, you just need to shut up and deliver on Halo Infinite's Season 3 and get people back in good graces. And then maybe if you want to try something like that, do it. But right now is not the right time. And to be honest, I think that they do a lot of questionable stuff. And that whole thing with the racial thing was absolutely horrible, because that was done on purpose, meaning that just doesn't happen on accident. So you have that problem. Frank, who's an idiot, that's been on Reset Era and NeoGAF when they were actively hating on Xbox, and I've tweeted him. He doesn't like me because I've always been like that. I was like, why would you go and support that place when all they do is look to me, especially when it was NeoGaf, was to take down your product and to put you in a bad light. And guess what? Now he looks stupid because there's all these comments that he was has, and he was basically sabotaged by both forums, and it was out in the open why he was banned. And just questionable stuff like that, and the people in there working for them just make me scratch my head sometimes and say, maybe Phil should intervene and really kind of have a culture change there. I'm just at this point, I'm fed up with them. I'm fed up with the stupidity of like the whole thing with the June 19th thing was really pissed me off, and then the whole thing with Frank. He should have known better. You're in a place where people want to see you fail, and commiserating with them and acting like they're your friends. And look where it got you. They banned you, and they said you're toxic, and they try to say all these things about you. Even previously, they said that he made a comment, something about, it was an old saying, and they acted like he was like a weirdo and this, and I was just like, this guy still goes on those forums and he still wants to talk to these people. I mean, that's up to him, but I think he should have known better. And just like overall, just through the years, it's just like they've made a lot of mistakes and they pissed off a lot of people. And I don't know. I just think that maybe there needs to be a real reevaluation there. Do we have a real commitment to Halo? Can they reiterate that? We didn't see anything at E3. We didn't, we get a joke of hey, it's in Flight Sim. Like, their hardcore fans are always upset. And I don't think that I think their community the Halo community is over the top. And I've talked about that too. But just overall, I think with such a valuable IP and such a passionate amount of people that buy into your game or want to be entertained, I think that you kind of have to fix things there, and that's my take on them. I'm at the point where I do think that there needs to be reevaluation there, and or changes, because it just always seems to be negativity coming from there. And it's just constant, and it's been through the years, through all the things, for everything that they've done. It's been controversial, and they just seem to never get it. I thought they got it with Halo Infinite, but then they promised retracing, they promised all this stuff, and they don't even talk about it anymore. So for me, particularly one of my favorite studios, and one of the studios that I had a lot of faith in, I'm at wit's end with them, and I'm actually at the point where I don't think they should be given the benefit of the doubt anymore. Their fans are always pissed off, and I don't know if they listen to their fans, but it's always a step late, and it's always like, they just make stupid mistakes. They implement stuff without making proper communication with their community. When they made all those changes, everyone was pissed off, and they just keep they don't have anything smooth about them. And I just feel like that's from their community director on down. I just feel like there's something that just isn't, it's just not kosher there. It's just not, I don't know. It just seems off to me. And at this point, I'm going to be critical of them, more critical than I've ever been, because I was always giving them the benefit of the doubt. And, some of the stuff that went on, I feel is like, it really, I don't know. It just disappointed me to the point it pissed me off. And you can obviously tell I'm pissed off because of the rant that I just, but yeah, they need to be looked at, in my opinion, or something's not right there, in my opinion, because there's always a problem.
And I agree with you. And actually, I kind of feel bad for Joe Staten, just because it just feels like he's kind of righting the ship, if you will. And a lot of the other like heads of the studio, or like the more higher ups, they just seem to be very, very silent on things. Like even with just like promoting like certain things with Halo Infinite itself. I'm just kind of wondering what the heck is going on over there. And you are seeing some departures too recently. I mean, that could be a shift in just game development cycle, which I totally understand. But it just seems like there are a lot of key people leaving at the moment that I don't know. I just like it. Just kind of it's interesting where 343 is at right now, especially when they have a big DLC coming up that we still don't know a lot about, and then we have all this content in the pipeline that still seems to be getting delayed and delayed, and it's just kind of unfortunate. And then with the other stuff that you listed off too, Tim, it's just like. I don't know. I don't know what to think about 343 right now. I'm in agreement with you. But yeah, just to round out this topic, I'll move over to Crusader. But obviously, we had where we're talking about the microtransactions that 343 is speculate. Like they're kind of seeing how people are gonna like react to this, or just kind of talking about it right now, adding. Being able to buy these Spartan points in the Master Chief Collection. Do you think this would be a good idea, or are you kind of against it?
So, as the game stands right now, MCC as it exists right now, I am 100% against it. I thought I was going to be Mr. Negative coming into this, but I don't think I'm going to be quite as negative as Tim, even though like everything Tim said, I full-heartedly agree with.
Yeah.
One of the problems with implementing into an as is MCC is after you hit rank 100, you do not earn the points from ranking up anymore. You only get them from completing the daily and weekly challenges. So you are literally constrained to a certain amount of how many of these points you can earn for free on any given day. If they remove the cap for like XP earn, like for how many you can earn through XP, and make it so that you can continuously earn them after level 100, say like every I don't actually know the economy very well and how XP works in the game, but it's been a while since I've played, but let's just say every 100,000 XP units you would earn 1 Spartan point. Then I'd be perfectly fine with them adding them to be purchased. I don't care, right? But right now, with there being a cap on how many you can earn for free in a day, and that being way less than the amount of things that you have the option to spend them on, so to speak, in the game, because you spend them on each of the battle passes, and you spend them on the like I don't what's the item shop called that they have right now in the game? They have a special name for it. I don't remember what it's called. But when you have a limited amount of them you can earn, I have a problem with implementing a pay around, because that's like it's not as egregious as Diablo Immortal, but that's essentially a mobile game tactic, right? You can only do so much a day for free, then you have to pay if you want to do more. And I do not like that tactic in any video game. You remove that, and they can put whatever they want in within reason of cost. Like I believe that was Centurion's point, or whoever said the cost point. That it can't be the same price as Halo Infinite's cosmetic shop. It needs to be within reason. But they could absolutely put this in, and I'd be whatever. It's fine, because again, not everyone has all the time in the world to grind stuff out. But if I want to grind stuff out, I should be able to grind it to my heart's content, especially since that was how the system itself was originally pitched to us. It was not pitched to us with the microtransactions in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would be my point on that. That it's fine in theory if other parts of the game get overhauled.
All right. I mean, I think that's a fair comment to say. I mean, I'll admit, like, again, I'm kind of in between myself with all this. Like, I feel that I understand everybody's points quite clearly. I do agree with you that, I do kind of hope that they don't detour too much from the original pitch of what they were doing. Things need to be able to be earned not easy, but like, just the progression is relatively
Yeah,
fair.
you got to work for it.
Mhm.
I don't mind having to be able to work for it, but there becomes a point in the day where I literally can no longer work for it, and that's the problem.
Exactly. But I do understand, just wanting to like, okay, I'll spend a little bit of money and okay, I'm able to get like a few sparm points and so on. I do understand that argument too. And yeah, it's a fair comment. But guys, I think on that note, we're now at the tail end of our show, and we'll start to end things off tonight. Again, I love the commentary on the Master Chief Collection topic, but just a fantastic show from everyone across the entire panel. Honestly, awesome stuff, guys. Tonight we covered some interesting Xbox Series console sales data for Japan, AMD FidelityFX upgrades, and 343 industry news, and much more. If you guys enjoyed tonight's show, then hey, please consider leaving a like, subbing to the channel, and sharing this episode out across whatever social media you subscribe to. Now, going over to the outros, and why don't we lead off here with Eric Shockley? Buddy, I thought you had some really awesome commentary tonight. Really, really good points. Where can everybody follow you at, Eric?
Yeah, as always, you can find me at ShockNero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live. But yeah, good show tonight. Good points. But yeah, see you later.
Indeedy. Moving over to Centurion. Buddy, again, good stuff from you as well, my friend. Where can everybody follow you?
Oh, thank you, gentlemen. It was a great conversation tonight. Thank you to everybody out in the chat that joined us. Be sure to subscribe to the show. Invader works very hard to keep this place going. For those interested in following me, please find me at Centurion1307 at YouTube, Xbox Live, and of course, Twitter. You could also find me right here every Sunday night on the TXR Podcast. And you can also find me every Wednesday night over on Gaming Beyond the Box. But just a disclaimer, Gaming Beyond the Box is taking a 4-week hiatus, but we will be returning.
Yeah, I saw Wilmy post about that. But again, hey, sometimes you need to do that for various reasons. And,
he came out and he came out on Twitter, and I'll at least say it because he came out on Twitter and let everybody know. He did catch COVID again, and regretfully, he spent, I believe, like a week and a half in the hospital. So right now he's just concentrating on spending time with his family and getting back on his feet and healthier. And yeah, man, just life comes at you fast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And honestly, good for him for taking the time there. That makes a lot of sense, and I hope he feels better ASAP. Yeah. Moving on over to Tim Dog, buddy. Loved the energy tonight. Loved the passion, of course. Always a great addition to our panels. Where can everybody find you at?
You can follow me on Twitter, xCloud, Tim Dog, same as Xbox. Great show, great panel, really good discussion. Be here next week. And if you want to try out a game, I sincerely recommend The Quarry. It is $70, which I don't really agree with the price, but it is what it is. I would pay for it because it's my type of game. But even at that price, I think that if you really want like these type of games like Until Dawn, it is the best of the best. I gave it a 9 point. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's a lot of fun. You can play it more than once. You have to play it more than once because there's more scenarios. And that's that. Be here next week, and great show, guys.
Good stuff. Yeah, I've been looking into the Quarry myself. It seems up my alley. I get a lot of Friday the 13th vibes for it, I guess because it's set in a summer camp type of setting. So it just looks like a cool game. So thanks for the recommendation, Tim. I have to check it out. Let's see. Moving on down here, General MLD buddy. Hey, I really liked your stuff tonight. Again, you had some really great points yourself. Where can everybody in the chat follow you?
Thank you. You guys can find me at MLD Ghost on Twitter, gamer tag GhostMLD. You can always find me on there playing with this and that. And yeah, looking forward to next week.
Of course, my friend. And last but certainly not least here, as I'm talking, Crusader. Buddy, I loved your in-depth analysis on obviously the FidelityFX stuff and much more. You're, again, I'll say this again, you're a wealth of information. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, thanks. I tech is my hobby and career. Love it. So you can find me at Crusader3456 on basically everything. I think the only thing that I'm not that on is Steam. Crusader Lord of the Realm on Steam. Yeah, and, just come out, hang out, have a good time. Always have conversations. We can converse about anything. Don't care if you agree with me or not, as long as you're civil. And I do a lot of stuff with leaks and rumors on r/gaming leaks and rumors. Mostly Mega Threads. Gonna have a PlayStation one out sometime in July. So, yeah.
All right, exciting. Certainly follow him there, guys. And to round out the TXR squad, you can find my content on YouTube at Invader Gaming. I'm also on Twitter at Invader_1986. Great show tonight, and we will see you all back here on the next one. Later, everyone. See ya.